Morning. Welcome to Monday. Kathy, we'll just let you get right into it.
Good morning, Kathy Funk Baxter. My slides are not showing up on there. And I'm trying to be good and not print out so much stuff. So I didn't bring you any printouts. So, but our first item is the jail. So I'll go ahead and get started. And Lorraine will join me in case you have questions. And I'll send these to y'all, I guess, later. On the jail, their revenues, they have intergovernmental budget of $321,000. We've already received through October 23rd. So Kelly, you finding them? Oh, good. Okay. They've already received $283,000, and so we are well on our way to being at budget or close to budget. And most of this is the MOUD funding, 257,000 of that 283. And those are for the medications for opioid use disorder. And then we have goods and services that's budgeted $1,481,000, and we've received so far $1,324,000. Those are our daily room and board charges for the surrounding cities and collected. These are funds collected through September primarily. So we're actually exceeding our target at this point in time for that budget. Miscellaneous, we have $1,000 budgeted. We brought in $422,000. So that's not anything significant to report on, but as far as our revenues for the jail, it looks like we're on track for everything. Going next to the expenses. Okay, our largest expense for the jail, of course, is our personnel and benefits, and that's budgeted at a little over 7 million, almost 7.3 million. Our actuals are almost 5.4 million, and so we're a little bit below the target, but of course we have our payroll for the second half of October hasn't been posted yet. And then we have supplies budgeted $1,184,000. We have expenses of $638,000 so far. And then on our services, we have, and this is where the majority of this is our medical contract and our food service, and as well as internal billings. And so services are budgeted at 4.3 million. We've expended 3.6 million so far. And so we're below, we're actually a little bit above our trend, our target for services, but that's primarily because we paid all of our internal services back in January at lump sum.
And we've paid NAFCare through October. So it's 10 months of the medical contract as well.
Yep. And then we had capital budgeted at $123,600. We have expended $49,000. We still have about $74,000 left in that. I think that's something that I think we still have some projects on that.
I believe we have probably one more payment for the Guardian RFID.
Yeah.
But we will not expend
The whole
all
thing.
of that, no.
And then as far as personnel, we have, for the current year, we have 51 positions filled, and we have 5 open positions as of October, as of the report of this.
We currently have 4 corrections officers positions open, and we have 2 that we will have on board by probably mid-November. So we'll be down to 2 vacancies. And we have some pretty good candidates, so we're cautiously optimistic that we will be down to 0 openings by the end of the year, but we're definitely making progress. It's been
So
positive.
that is the plan to get them all filled?
Yes.
Good.
Yep.
Are there any other questions on expenses? Okay, also included in the corrections areas are offender services, and so we'll go to that one next. Kelly. So on offender services, we have intergovernmental revenue of 60,000. We've brought in a little over 24,000. And this is 11,000 of that is state distributed revenue for the cost of implementing a DUI and other criminal justice statutes. The rest of the revenue is received from the state contributions from Department of Ecology. So we're a little bit below target on that particular revenue stream. And then our goods and services, 88,100 is budgeted. We brought in 56,000. Those are collections from alternative sentencing programs. And so that one as well, we're a little bit below our target on the budget. And then miscellaneous was $100, and we haven't received anything on that, but it's not material.
What, just out of curiosity, why does Ecology send us money for the jail?
We have a grant with the Department of Ecology for our work crews. They go out and do litter
Oh.
pickup on the
Mhm.
highways, and then we bill back
Yeah.
to Department of Ecology quarterly for that. We're now running 2 work crews 5 days a week again, and having numbers that it is for out of custody clients showing up. So we've been able to pick up more work for the Dike District and for the cities. We've reached out to the cities to try to get back on their books. We were not able to assist for a few years because of the low numbers in work crew, but so I anticipate the revenue will improve next year.
Maureen, real quick,
Mhm.
if we go back to the previous slide here. Sure. When you get those positions filled, have you looked to see what that's gonna do to your overtime?
I haven't looked at it really closely, but it will definitely have we'll have a decrease on our overtime for sure. And we are going to discontinue using the temps as well. That's the agreement we had with the union. So at the end of the year, we'll stop using the temps that we've been using in our control room to offset the number of vacancies we've had open. So yes, I anticipate we'll see a significant increase in overtime next year if we're able to stay fully staffed.
Okay, we'll go to expenses for offender services. Our largest expense for this is our personnel, and we've got a budget of $979,822. We've expended $602,560. So we're a bit below our target for this. And so I'm not sure if we'll expend all the budget on this particular line item. We actually have 1 vacancy, which accounts for a portion of that, 63,000. And we also have the second half of October payroll to post.
And we're not recruiting for that position. It's a work crew officer position that I've left vacant during COVID, so.
So we have supplies of $15,600 budgeted. We've expended about 5,717 of that. So we're a bit below our target there as well. And then on services, we have $179,052. We've expended $148,000 so far. So we're well on the target for that particular line item. And as she said, there's 7 filled positions and 1 open position for offender services. And then the next item that's for corrections is jail concessions. So we have revenue budgets there, 60,000 for goods and services. So far, we've brought in $35,999. So those are mostly our commissary vendor and inmate purchases. And then miscellaneous is budget 25,000. We've brought in 43,000. And this is our commissions received from our jail inmate phone provider. So we've exceeded our budget on miscellaneous. And then expenses, we have supplies of 70,000. We've expended 25,879, so we're well below our target. And on services, we had 17,900, and we've expended $4,521. So we're below our target there as well. And that's it for the financials on corrections, jail and corrections. All right. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
What was on the list? Well, I'm surrounded by candy up here. Next on my agenda is the risk management's financials. You want to go next? Okay. I'll quickly do their financials. They haven't had a lot of changes since we last presented this. And then I'll turn it over to Marissa and Shelley to do their updates on their different statistics that they report. So on risk management, their revenues are primarily the billings that we do to all the departments. We had budgeted $3,368,000. We've actually brought in $3,371,000. So we're right on track on revenues, and miscellaneous is 50,000. And so far we've brought in 48,603. That's primarily investment earnings on the balance that we have, the cash on hand. Next on expenses, we have personnel of 264,150. We've expended 200,940. So we are right at our target on that. We have supplies of 4,720. We've expended 864, so we're well below on supplies. Services is where we pay our risk pool assessments. We have budgeted $2.8 million for this. We've already paid 2.766, almost 2.767. And that's almost all of that is our risk pool premiums or assessments, as well as some of our other internal services that we paid in January, like for IT.
So that budget of 2.8, that's our premium for the year from risk pool?
Yes. On our transfers, this is where we had transfers of 850,000. That's two major items. One is we typically transfer money to our liabilities claims. That's to help pay for the deductibles on our risk pool transactions. And so we did that at the beginning of the year. That's 300,000. And then we also repaid the general fund earlier in the year, 550,000 transferred back to the general fund for a loan received in 2024 to help us pay all those premiums that we had to pay in advance. So that's what that is. And we, that's it.
Kathy, is that a 1-year premium, or is that the 1-year premium plus when we squared it up to?
So that's basically, this is the 12-month premium. So last year we had to pay, remember we had the stub year and all that stuff. And so,
So this is true 12 months.
this is true 12 months. This gets us 12 months through December 31st. And then the new billings will start in January for a 12-month period where they'll expect us to pay by January 31st, the total assessment.
We have not received what that is yet, right? I haven't seen it.
No, we haven't received an actual invoice. And we,
This is Shelley. And when we spoke to the risk pool last week, hello, commissioners, good morning. They said that they would be getting invoices out early January. And I had asked, is there any way we could get them any sooner so that we know what to budget for? So we're hoping sooner than January, but it's looking like the beginning of January.
We're hearing rumors of 38%, which is $1.1 million. I can see why they don't want to give it out to us till January.
Yeah.
So that means our premium, if that rumor is true, we're hearing that for the next 2 years,
yeah, this,
we're paying $4 million in premiums for the risk pool.
yeah, I have budgeted a little over 3 million something for next year. The
We
30.
found a money tree for this, or?
No, of course not. On the risk pool, the 38%, from what I understand, is just on the liability portion. On the property, which is about 600 something thousand of that 2.8, that 600,000 is not going up, is what I understand. They're going to keep that one flat. It actually went down, but they want to bill everybody at the same rate as before so they can put some of the excess back to fund balance.
That 600,000 is what you said is part of that 2.8?
Yes, So the liability portion,
Would be
if I,
2.2.
yeah, there's also your cybers in there. It's not significant, and a couple of other ones, but the majority of the 2.8 is the liability portion, unfortunately.
It was voted upon on the last meeting, so it is happening. It's not a rumor.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not a rumor. It was voted on by the board at the last conference a few weeks ago.
Yeah, but Shelley's right. We need the exact number because just because it in total went up 38%, they also bill each county based upon your experience ratio and some other factors that go into the billing. And so we need to know our exact number. We know what the entire liability portion is going up 38%, but we need to know our portion. So when I prepared the budget, we had been told earlier in the year, I think at the March meeting, to expect a 25% increase. So I had budgeted for a 25% increase, but I had also budgeted for an increase on the property as well. So that's a little savings that we'll have. It's not significant, but it will help a little bit to offset that 38%.
If you look at the increases that we've had over the last 5 years, including what's going to happen in 2026, it's well over 100%.
Yep. Yep. Just since I've been here, I think we had 30 and 20. So,
Well, it sounds like even with those minor changes, you're still just short of $4 million,
yes.
roughly.
Yeah. Yeah. Because what I had budgeted was at least a $500,000 increase in our premium. And that's the budget that we had already dispersed out to the departments and allocated to the departments so they could make their budgets. So anyway, yep, that's where we're at. So I don't see any major issue with our expenses for this year. We're on track and we shouldn't have any major overages on our expenses for this year.
Since we're on this topic, Marissa, I'm a little jaded with this whole situation. Can you give the board a report on the conference and what we voted on and what took place and what your thoughts are?
Sure. So we went to the conference 2 weeks ago, and they did a pretty comprehensive review of their budget. And I think that's a fair assessment. It does look like it's going to be between 35 and 38% increase for 26. When they did the 5-year comparison of rate increases, they did have that broken out so that we could see that climb, and it is a pretty steady climb of over 100%. I think there were some member counties who were frustrated by that, just as I think you all are. And I think it, definitely, I think backs the position we're in doing that cost comparison. We do in our presentation today, we're planning to discuss that we are doing that background investigation with alternative providers to see if we can present a cost savings to the county for that. And so we've had some productive conversations in that regard that we can report on.
It was, I voted no on all the increases. There was actually quite a few counties that voted no. The position that the risk pool has taken is that the state has stepped in and said, you're, as they told us, we're headed towards the guardrail. The state has said, you're on the guardrail. And this is the only way to get them off of the guardrail, so to speak, is an influx of cash. And the only way they're going to get that is from counties. There were counties that said, we don't have the money to pay it, so I'm not sure where it's going to come from. There were other counties that said, I'm not paying for it. A comment was made there by one of the other, it wasn't a commissioner. I want to say it was a risk pool analyst or a risk analyst. I'm not sure who he was, but the comment was made that when this risk pool was founded and started, that we all agreed that we would do whatever we had to do to keep this risk pool solvent. I raised my hand and said, I didn't agree to that.
Yeah.
My loyalty is not to the risk pool to keep it solvent. My loyalty is to the citizens of our county and the county that I represent. So I'm really not sure, honestly, what the future of that risk pool is, given the circumstances and what's going on. It's going to be very interesting to see. There were a lot of things that were said that these numbers are based on caseloads remaining the same, which that's not going to happen. So I don't know. We really need to take a serious look at. I understand that there's probably things we're going to have to do extra, but we already know we're getting a 38 this year and a 38 next year. And what kind of an insurance program could we put together for $5 million that we know we're going to have to pay? So yeah, it was a very interesting and frustrating meeting.
Yep.
We don't have a money tree or a printing press.
No, let's put it in perspective. You don't have a money tree, and 800,000 is roughly 8 FTE. I mean, if you want to put it in people perspective.
Yep.
So we can do a little extra work, or we can let people go. I mean, what do you want to do? Let's just bring it to brass tacks.
Yep. And I believe their stance is that once we're in the risk pool, that we have to give a notice. If we are to leave the risk pool, we have to give a notice of 1 year. And so.
Is that still apply when they're in financial issues with the state?
I don't know.
I mean, how can they force us to stay with somebody that's proven that they can't handle their finances?
Well, and I don't know how we don't even have a contract. We don't have anything to know what we're going to renew, and we're going to get it after the first of the year.
The good news is we can give notice up until December 31st, and then we have a 6-month window to retract our notice of departure from the risk pool. So it gives us our time to do our due diligence, which Marissa and I have been very engaged in meeting with different partners, different agents or insurance companies. And so it does give us a 6-month window to say, okay, we're going to leave, but then maybe in the 5th month, we realize, oh, okay, there's nothing really comparable, or it's not enough of a cost savings, which I don't feel that we're going to discover that. But it gives us that 6-month window to say, we'd like to stay with the risk pool. So there is that little window of 6 months. But we do have to we have to put them on notice, so to speak, no later than December 31st.
And that's a 1-year notice
Correct.
and a 6-month retraction period.
Correct.
Okay.
And I gotta say, one of the things that really, really frustrated me was, the director asked for a 14% pay increase amongst what's going on, and, a 5% COLA for the employees. And, I expressed my complete and total discontent and, that they're out of touch. And with what's going on, we're asking our department heads and electeds to cut people and to tighten their budget, and they're asking for more in payroll. And, I was baffled by that myself, but.
I was as well. It didn't help that they sent the board packet to in the 10th hour, the day before everyone's traveling to the conference. I think it came out at like 6:30 on Tuesday evening. And then Wednesday, everyone's traveling. So they didn't have time to read the 333 pages of conference data. And then boom, you're moving right into the conference looking for these approvals of these salaries. So to me, it didn't feel good.
And
Sounds
and
like the Nationals.
the comment was made that they made a concession to give them a 5% increase.
Of course they did.
Shelley, don't let us lose that date. I think we need to really seriously consider giving notice.
I'm
No.
working on it every day,
Yeah, I
Commissioner
don't
Dahl.
want that to pass by.
Marissa and myself have been doing a lot of research. We've been doing a lot of intentional connections that we'll share with you during the presentation.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to move on to industrial accident financials. So industrial accident is also a program for our workers' comp. This is where we bill departments. So we have goods and services budgeted at $796,800. We've brought in $796,850. And so all of our internal services have been collected. Miscellaneous is budgeted at a little over 21,000. We brought in 24,000. That's primarily our investment earnings. We also had a 6,000 refund related to our 2024 insurance premiums for excess workers' comp. And so that was good. So we're fine on our revenue budget and actuals. Going to the expenses, we budget as well an corresponding amount on our expenses, $796,800 for services. This is primarily insurance, an insurance premium for the excess workers' comp, which is a little over 100. I think it's about 120 or 117,000. And then this is also where we have an actual claims paid amount. So far through the month of October, we've paid $535,190. So we're just slightly below our target if you're looking at it on a 12-month basis. So hoping that we will come in under budget on that one as well. And then, of course, they'll have some additional information in their presentation. Next is our liability claims. This is where we actually pay. We set aside funds that's transferred in $300,000 from risk management. And so that was collected already as a revenue stream. And then on our expenses, next slide. We have paid out $210,070 based on a budget of $453,000. So those are expenses that have been paid out. we're going to recoup, some of this, was our expenses related to annex repairs, but we're going to recoup that. Um, and I think everything has been submitted for that claim, in order to get that money back before the end of the year. So, and these are the additional expenses over and above that are for, legal fees and things like that. And that's it for risk management. And I'll turn it over to, I don't, do we come back for risk management after this? And because I have another financial still to do, or would you like to?
We can
straight
come
in?
back. It's up to you guys.
Do I want to go straight into their data points, or what would you like? Okay, so you don't mind if we, okay, so Kelly, you want to bring up their slides? And I'll turn it over to Marissa and Shelley and save my voice.
Good morning again. I am working remote due to my little foot surgery. But I know some of you have interacted with Marissa either by email, but I'll let Marissa introduce herself officially to all of Cowlitz County. So take it away, Marissa.
Hi there, Marissa Hutchison, Risk and Safety Analyst for Cowlitz County.
Do you want to give a little bit of history on maybe what you did before prior to coming over to this great organization?
Sure. I have 21 years of safety, security, emergency management experience, and a fair bit of that has been some environmental risk and risk assessment work related to that. So excited to be here.
Thank you. Well, welcome. This is our normal presentation. You will notice a few things that are different that we've enhanced, and we'll explain those along the way. So I'm Shelley Pierce, Risk and Safety Manager, and this is our November 3rd presentation. Next slide. Old business, next slide. So we had 2 individual insurance comparison workshops. We had the risk pool come on October 6th and speak to the board, as well as Alliant proposal workshop on the 20th. Over the past few weeks, Marissa and I have been very aggressively working on solidifying which direction we're going to go, knowing that the new invoice with a 38% increase is just not sustainable. So we've been conducting a bunch of cost evaluations as well as one-on-one virtual connections with those that are currently with Alliant or those that have left the risk pool, understanding the pros and cons from a financial perspective, a relationship perspective, and also from a customer service perspective. One of the options that we'll go into more deeply in an executive session is the ability to have a TPA through Alliant, which I believe is the Washington County's risk group. So it's WCRG for group. So Marissa and I met with them last week, and we were very pleasantly surprised that our broker had already reached out to them to see if they could partner with us. So there's a very extensive application that I'll be working on this week to see what that cost savings would be should we move over to the Washington County's risk group. So it is much like the current risk pool that we're in right now. It's much smaller. We would be the 11th county joining. And so I met with Byron, Marissa, and I last week, and we'll be, as we peel back the layers of that onion, we'll be sharing those discoveries with you. Next slide. So our incidences, next slide. So this is one thing that we wanted to bring to light is we've had 66 incidences this year. So an incident can be a hazard observed, property damaged, employee injury. It can also be that they sought medical help, which also if they have an employee injury that leads to medical help, that would become then, it would move from an incident to a workers' comp. Currently, we're at 66 year to date, total resulting in workers' compensation claims. 31 of those incidences resulted in a workers' comp claim. Total incidences for October was 3. Next slide, please. One of our 3 incidents happened with Northwest Enforcements, our security firm. So there was a use of force incident. The situation was there was a county customer, elderly gentleman that was very confused when he was exiting the building, and he entered the personal vehicle of the building security officer. The gentleman became aggressive when he was confronted. Northwest Enforcements attempted to de-escalate with the individual, but the individual reached for the officer security guard's holster. 911 was called. Kelso PD came. Cowlitz County deputies responded. I think in total there were about 5 deputies at the end of the day responding to this one incident. The background, the customer was doing business in the treasurer's office. The staff reported that the customer was confused. Even further investigation, we think that he may have had just an elderly person that was very confused when he came into the building and when he exited the building. Northwest Enforcement's prepared a report. Our recommendations are we have no camera coverage in the courtyard or the employee parking lot of the admin building. So recommending additional camera security footage so that we can document incidences so that it's never their word. He said, she said, we actually have video coverage. So at this time, there's no camera coverage on any of the surrounding of the admin building. So I just wanted to bring that up. Next slide, please. I'll turn it over to Marissa.
Alrighty, next slide. We're going to go through some of our statistics here. It's going to look a little bit different from previous months, but hopefully this makes good sense for you. So our current claim statistics, this is going to reflect 2025 at present. So we've had 31 claims in 2025 so far, and that includes all claims. So open claims, closed claims, denied claims, all the claims. Our current open claims as of the end of the month, we have 11. The oldest open claim spans back to 2015. We had 2 new claims in October, and we closed 4 claims during the month of October. And this total paid to date for loss year 2025 claims is the almost $43,000 reflected there. Based on our average amount per claim, that is almost $1,400 per claim. And then our average days open per claim for the 2025 loss year claims is the 39.1. And if you'll go to the next slide, Kelly, I'll show you why that is important. So for our kind of 5-year comparison, we've had a slight increase, but still very steady in claims over the last 5 years. You'll see there, we've got the 10 plus the 1 from 2015. This was a low paid claim year to date. We still have the 5 open claims. So depending on what happens with those claims over November and December, that number could increase. And then the longer those previous year claims stay open, those numbers may also increase just as those cases are managed. But compared to previous loss years, you'll see there, we've had some kind of ebb and flow. I think it's a case by case, injury type, severity, what kind of treatments are required for those claims kind of determines that dollar amount. And we've had some variable, average per claim amounts to, if we have a lower number of claims and a higher dollar amount, those may change. Average days per claim as of the 31st are those numbers reflected. The longer the claims stay open, of course, the larger that average may appear. And then our average claim cost per day reflected there. And of course, based on that average dollar amount. So we're doing pretty good this year up until this point. So hopefully we have a kind of a soft landing at the end of the year. And we'll be able to use that average that Kathy talked about in the budget review. Next slide. And this is our current breakdown for those 2025 and open claims from other claim years. By department, as you see, I think our largest is the road department based on our open claims at present, followed by the sheriff's office, and then the onesies, twosies from some of the other departments. And you'll see two amounts reflected here. There's the amount paid per date and the amount incurred to date. So we do still have some outstanding expenses for those open claims that we expect bills. And that may evolve as treatment considerations are made in some of those cases that are still open. So we'll continue to track that. But that contrast of what we've paid versus what we've incurred and may continue to expect. Next slide. And this is the year-to-year comparison of total claims by department. So you see kind of highlighted there, kind of pretty routinely, the road department, the sheriff's office, and the jail have the lion's share of the claims. I think that's kind of a risk-based evidence model that, you know, they see the bulk of the hard stuff or the scary stuff or the dangerous stuff. So I don't think there's any data points there that are concerning. Next slide.
So the jail had no claims last year?
It does not appear that way based on our data. Yeah. So it could be, and you know, it relates to that injury incident slide. There, you know, for 25, I think there were 66 incidents and only 35 ended up in a workers' comp claim. It doesn't necessarily mean that no incidents occurred. It just means no
Claims.
claims were filed based on that information. And we do track that so we can provide some more detailed metrics for the total incidents if that's helpful.
Can you go back one more slide?
Yeah.
Noxious weeds, one incident, 400,000, which
Yes.
if you,
That is the claim from 2015. If you want to review that, we could do an executive session to discuss details, but that's been our long-standing claim, and I think it was a significant injury that involved quite a bit of treatment.
okay, so that's not dated. That's not this year.
Correct.
I see.
This is current open claims, so it includes claims from all claim loss years.
Okay, so when you go to the next slide, noxious weeds is only 3% on this.
Right, because
So
they had a claim this year, and it was just one.
It's not in there because it was not this year, that
Correct,
2025.
yeah.
Okay, I
Yep.
understand. All right, thank you.
Yeah,
Closed or denied.
yeah. That one I think was a very small, and I'm not sure the dollar amount for this year. So
So-
different data point on those two.
So it didn't even get included. I don't see it on the 2024 total claims breakdown.
Correct, because it occurred in loss year 2015.
Okay.
How do you determine the incurred amount?
That is based on their medical and other billings. So if they got care and turned in an invoice and it hadn't yet been paid by
Okay.
us. So there's some of that, you know, what we've paid out versus what they've billed for.
So it's not some formula based on how many days it's open, it's actual billings that we just haven't paid?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's some validation and other things that they do administratively at our TPA for those things that factor in. Next slide. So this is just another viewpoint, kind of same data, looking at the last 5 years, what we've paid to date for claims for those lost years. So not what we've paid in 2025 for all of these, but for the injuries that occurred in those lost years, what we've paid for those injuries based on the lost year they've incurred. So we had loss in 2025, but not significant injury loss. So that dollar amount is low compared to the big orange line there, which was 2024. We've got 4 open claims from that year, and they were fairly significant injuries that required more care. Next slide. And this is just some of the claim number comparisons. So the blue line is the total claims. The orange line is the open claims from those years at present. The green line is everything that's closed, and the bright blue is those that have been denied. We've had kind of an increase in denied claims based on, meeting documentation deadlines, or, they have a window to seek care. And so we've made some progress given the balance of our increases. And that is the workers' comp data. Any questions on that before we move on to the liability?
Okay, I will pick up at liability. Next slide. So these are all of our tort claims, our liability claims. For 2025 so far, we have 11 open claims. Still pending, still idling at 4 sexual abuse claims as of October 1st. New claims during October, 0. We closed 0 claims in October. Claims in litigation or potential litigation still at 11, with 11 opened for the year to date. Claims cost per year, we're looking at about $61,226,000. Next slide. Special projects. We created a standard operating procedure, and it provides us the ability to outline what we're going to do in an investigation situation. We've had quite a few car accidents from other departments and or incidences that require our department to do an investigation. And so making sure that we are very forthcoming with what we're going to be investigating, how will we handle the investigation process. So we created a standard operating procedures. It goes over the incidents, reporting, results, delays, notifications, proper documentation submission. We've presented this to a few departments in regards as we're seeing the accidents and injuries come through. And then we've had them up to review with our human resource department as well. We started distributing this in the fall as we have an accident or incident with departments that require an investigation, and then we review it with department heads. Our target condition department compliance with reporting 24 hours or immediate, depending on the situation, and also doing a post-incident drug testing immediately based on their role, especially if it has to do with like a car accident or equipment accident, things like that. So actual condition right now, we're still getting some late reporting by departments, delayed reporting. Sometimes it's just a few days, and sometimes it can be a few weeks and even months where they'll send us over an incident report. And so what we're really needing is all departments to make sure that we're getting that information, because it's critical in how we handle our investigation. We can't go back 2 months later and if there was a car accident and want to go back 2 months later and need to do a drug test of any type. So that's why those timeframes are so critical to our role. The obstacles that we've faced: department compliance with our standard operations procedures and CBAs for post-accident testing. Next steps, we're updating the safety policy, form packets, and facilitate leadership training. So Marissa and I have been compiling leadership training, what to do in these all types of situations, whether it's an accident workers' comp incident, things like that. So we're really needing all of our leadership buy-in at every department and at every level, and we hope to launch this Q1 of 2026. Next slide. We did in-person CPR training on Thursday, November 9th. It was option for staff to take an online or versus solely online or in person. This was in-person live training, $60 per staff member, which is a cost savings. I believe before when we held in-person pre-COVID, we were paying about $120 per person. So it is a cost savings and it's in-house. So the trainer comes right to whatever department or building on campus we want them to. So we'll be offering this goal of 1 per quarter or as needed. It's nice that we've partnered with our Security Northwest Enforcements, our security firm, and they're hosting the CPR live training. So it was largely successful in October. I would highly recommend this CPR training for anyone that's new to Cowlitz County or anyone that has never performed with an Annie doll or got that real one-on-one hands-on training. I would highly recommend in-person training versus the virtual training where you're just learning how to give CPR, you're learning all the actions, but no real life situations with the Annie dolls and things like that. I know for me personally, if I pass out, I hope someone's gone through the in-person training versus just read it online and training like that. So if we have a demand for more than 1 per quarter, because it's only offered to a class of 10, we can certainly increase that based on demand or need. Next slide, please. I'm happy to announce we'll be launching a new training management system. Right now, we're currently with NeoGov and we'll be moving to Vector in Q1 of 2026. This is around a $35,000 cost savings to our bottom line. And also, I believe we'll be getting the customer service that now of a county of over 600 staff members, we really need that customer service support. I highly recommend all staff should complete all of their continued training through NeoGov through the end of the year. Then we will transfer all training data and records to our Vector platform. The training that I've gone through, the day one training and the virtual training that we did to be introduced to NeoGov be introduced to Vector seems much more user friendly. Right now, we're doing a lot of triage where staff have taken the training, but NeoGov says they haven't. I'll go in and omit that training, and within 24 to 48 hours, it shows back in their portal. So it's extremely frustrating, extremely time consuming for myself, our department, and the staff member that's getting these notifications that they haven't taken it, and really they have. So my goal is to continue to have everyone continue to use the HR or that continue to do their training, and we'll transcribe those records at the end of the year. HR will continue to use the NeoGov hiring platform, which we do all of our job postings and things like that. So they will still use that NeoGov platform site. And again, it's a cost savings to our overall bottom line. Next slide, please. Happy to report we received almost 80% of our cybersecurity reimbursement. We had a cybersecurity response that occurred in April of 2025. We incurred approximately $100,000 in expenses and staff overtime for the responses. We submitted reimbursement for $85,256 and some change in expenses from the risk pool, and we received $85,000 back. We've still got another $20,000 for invoices that we're waiting to receive to again request reimbursement. Staff overtime in our IT department, unfortunately, was not reimbursable through the risk pool cybersecurity policy. Any questions so far? No? Okay, next slide, please. That is our November risk management presentation. Any questions for Marissa or myself? All right. Thank you, commissioners, for your time. Thank you, Marissa. Thank you, Kathy. Great job, Marissa.
Thanks, Shelley.
Okay, Kelly, would you bring up? Barely, yeah. Barely. Okay, so we have a, I think it's boundary review is first. Yeah, we know, we have, I don't remember doing this one before, but Boundary Review Board is actually part of building and planning. So we don't budget any revenue for this. They actually have $50 under goods and services, so nothing really to report there. Next slide, their expenses. They have a little bit of expenses for Boundary Review Board. They have personnel. This is, I think, paying some time, and it's, we budgeted $1,625 and we have actuals of $432. So we're well below our target on that. We have supplies budgeted of $300 and we haven't expended anything. And then services, we're budgeted at $17,880. We've only expended $1,144 on that. And so that too is well below target. And that's it for Boundary Review Board. Then the next one is our community long-range planning. This is through October 23rd. And we have, on the revenue side, we have goods and services budget $6,100. We've received $3,000. That's slightly below target, but this is for land use amendments. And so miscellaneous, we budgeted $10,994. We've exceeded that on our actuals, came in at $11,811. And 10,000 of that is related to a one-time historic preservation grant. On the expense side, our largest expense is personnel. We've got budgeted $424,708. We've expended $259,631. We're currently below target. So we had one employee that was budgeted out of this fund, but the salary was actually paid in building and planning. I think we're going to correct that. We're going to go back and correct that. So supplies, budget at $3,850. Actuals came in at $328. Services budgeted at $163,961. Expended so far is $119,655. So we're right at target on that one as far as expenditures. And we budgeted for approximately 6 staff members for community long-range planning. Is there any Kleenex? Sorry. Gotta take a Kleenex break. Okay. All right. My Dayquil's starting to wear off. Are we ready to go to building and planning? All right. So on revenue, we have licenses and permits, budgeted at $1,364,000. We brought in $1,160,000, a little over $1,160,000. And so we're well above our target on licenses and permits. On goods and services, we budgeted $1,360,000. We brought in $937,860. This is largely made up of fees associated with new construction. The department had noticed and has noticed a decrease in permit request compared to prior year, which is why we're probably slightly below target, but not significantly, just slightly below target. We have miscellaneous budget at 70,000. We brought in 84,411, so we're above target for our miscellaneous. And that's primarily our investment earnings make up this. And they also received a grant revenue related to voluntary stewardship program. Expenses, we personnel is our largest expense for building and planning. We have budgeted 2,240,000. So far, actuals have come in at 1,673,000. We're right on target for that one, but like I said, there's one person that we're going to move over to community long-range planning. And so services, oh, no, supplies, I'm sorry, skipped supplies. $36,500 budgeted. Actuals are at 13,000, so we're below budget there. And then our services were budgeted at $1,078,000. We've expended 660,000, and so we're right below target for that, for our services. And then the other one's debt service and depreciation amortization. Both of these relate to the SPEDA expenses that were booked by the auditor's department and reversed in the new year. So they look slightly odd, but it has to do with financial accounting entries. And this department is budgeted for 15 FTEs, and they have 1 FTE open that they're giving up. So we're going to correct that. That will be, actually, when we did the open positions, we found that and we talked to Tracy, so we'll be correcting that. So it'll be 0 open positions, fully staffed. So I'll turn it over to Tracy.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tracy Jackson, Building and Planning. We just wanted to talk, it's okay, you can sit there, you're fine, I promise. We wanted to talk a little bit about the comp plan quickly, and then also just show you a map of the open lands that we're talking about including in the comprehensive plan that we are currently working on. And so I'm going to turn it over to Adam, but I want to just kind of let the board know where we're at on our comprehensive plan and moving forward.
Thank you, Director Jackson. Adam Trimble, Building Planning. And as she mentioned, the comprehensive plan is a planning document that we use to project growth and plan for implementing the vision for the county's development over a 20-year timeframe. This update is due next year, June. The state provides some requirements for planning planning for counties like ours, which is partially subject to the Growth Management Act, not fully subject. So we have fewer tasks to accomplish with our update. As I've just shared with you, we are working through the steps to complete that update. And that did begin earlier this year with the steering committee. And that steering committee provided input to us about whether we're on track with the vision of the 2017 plan. And they helped us get kind of the scope of the update understood. We've kind of settled on a light touch, just recognizing that since 2017, we are still working on implementing that vision and roughly on course with what was imagined at that time for the growth and development of this county. So with the light touch, we will work through the steps of consulting with our planning commission, consulting with public interest groups, local governments, agencies that might have a stake in the county and the growth and development here. The kind of to-do list that we've settled on will be working through housekeeping items for our development codes, our zoning codes, checking our map for changes that might need to be made between 2017 and this year. So where maybe water and sewer has been extended, where maybe kind of local areas are continuing to grow, such as Lexington or Toutle, Greater Castle Rock, for example, Silver Lake. spaces like that where we may need different land use designations to reflect what the market is asking for and what people are interested in doing with their properties. We're also looking at some changes that might help reflect what the ports in our county are doing. Just one example is Port of Kalama is engaged in not just heavy industry, but also tourism and recreation. That's one of the uses that they're promoting, that they're continuing to grow. And so we want to make sure that our comprehensive plan addresses that in addition to what you might normally think of with a port. So those kind of things are all conceived of. We've got some buy-in from Planning Commission. We've started our outreach to those local governments, and we're going to continue to do public outreach. Other major tasks with the update include looking at our critical areas ordinance, which is one of the main jobs of the Planning Division, is considering the impact of development on sensitive areas, environmentally sensitive areas. And so the state does require counties and local governments to look at those rules and laws every so often and make sure that they're aligned with what the science is showing for protection of those areas. We are on your agenda looking to get buy-in for a contract to do that work. We will be looking to work with a firm that did our previous update, so they're very familiar with our county, with our values, with the interests of our citizens, and they've also worked with some counties that I think have a similar outlook in terms of have a heavy timber presence, have a heavy industrial presence, have a rural lifestyle for the most part, and so I think we're aligned on those levels, and I'm expecting a pretty smooth and probably another light touch update. We're going to check the boxes that are required of us and try not to go beyond that. A transportation element is also conceived of with a new county transportation plan, supplementing what we currently understand about our transportation needs. So we'll look to integrate that into this update. And then as it shows, try to wrap this up June. And then typically you have a 5-year goal for implementing what you're calling for in your comprehensive plan. So that would take us through 2030. And that work is mostly done by the Planning Commission and staff over that time frame. I'd be happy to answer any questions about the comprehensive plan update process or our timeline. Another handout that you have in front of you is just a depiction of lands held by the Department of Natural Resources within our county. They're kind of the light gray shaded on this map. And, one thing we're learning is that those lands may not always be controlled by a DNR. And so looking strategically and through the lens of our comprehensive plan, the county may have an interest in, vying for some of these properties if the state is willing to transfer them to the county or transfer them to some other use like recreation, open space, you name it. So just along that vein, we wanted to identify where those lands are, if they're of strategic value or maybe recreational value or other value to our county or our residents, looking ahead. And then also, in maybe a larger context, looking at what properties are publicly held and considering that those do perform differently than other properties. So they may be timber, they may be forest lands, but they also are not likely to turn over like Weyerhaeuser lands do occasionally into private development. And so one thing we're considering doing with our update is identifying public lands throughout the county and then potentially applying a category such as public or quasi-public to them, just to kind of call out that reality that there's places in the county where it's really unlikely that the conditions are going to change long-term, and just kind of take them out of that consideration as something other than, publicly held properties.
That, Adam, you're saying these gray areas I'm seeing here?
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
faint gray. So like
Yeah, I
South
see.
Fork Tootle.
And then little patches throughout. Yeah, good.
Yep. So Lewis River shows some potential. And I believe there are some patches around Silver Lake that might be of interest to the county.
Adam, is when we, like these properties here, when we identify them, Does the zoning process go through this also, and how do we determine what zones to put on them?
Yeah, the way we do zoning here is we have a lot of the county in the unzoned category where we don't apply specific zoning rules, but we do adopt kind of performance standards through our comp plan, which sets out minimum lot size, minimum width, conditions for development such as access to water or sewer, which would then dictate if you could get a smaller lot size. So yeah, there is an impact on how we designate them through the comp plan, and it does translate to a development standard. But for a lot of these properties that we'd be designating, they probably remain unzoned or remain their current zoning if they are zoned. So I wouldn't be looking to change that necessarily.
Do we address through this process how zoning would impact housing, like based on lot size? You know, 5 acres, 2.5 acres, as opposed to a smaller lot to put more houses on and that kind of thing?
Yeah, certainly. So if you, through comprehensive planning, project, a need for housing for 20,000 more residents over a 20-year period, then you do try to predict where those residents are going to end up, and then compare whether your current zoning actually provides the capacity for that much housing that would meet that potential demand. And so it's a complicated process, and some of the feedback we've heard is that tension between, are we a rural county and are we going to preserve rural lifestyle, or are we going to grow into something different, maybe like a Clark County scenario where you're seeing density in the rural areas. And Planning Commission, we had mixed voices, but I would say the overall view was, rural areas are rural and we expect them to stay that way. But also recognizing we have growth areas like Lexington and Silver Lake and Toutle and places with schools in them. So the cities are going to absorb most of the growth in the county over this time, but the county certainly needs to account for the growth that we expect and make sure that our zoning reflects that. We just have the constraint of there's only so much water and sewer in the county. We rely on special districts or county-owned water sewer facilities to facilitate higher densities. And if those aren't expanding, it makes it a lot more difficult to accommodate things like apartments or even medium density, smaller homes or smaller lots.
Where in the review process do we do that?
The kind of the map change, step 4 would be our, we pick a growth target and then we work through our land capacity and what map changes would be required.
Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, and I just have one more budget request, and I've put this through paperwork and everything, and I spoke about it with our, when we had our budget workshop, but we are really in need of that Wi-Fi booster within our building. Being on the first floor, we are in just like the dead zone, and since everything that we do is pretty much online, I mean, we help people with paper at the counter, but we also, they have to go outside to send any documents to us. It's real and inconvenient, so I would beg, plead, and barter for a Wi-Fi booster. I don't know what exactly it would cost for our building, but it would be a real help for us. And I know there's other departments that could utilize it as well. I mean, we're pretty much a paperless industry now, so I would highly recommend it. Please, please, please. Even if we have to pay for some of it out of our budget, it's I'm more than willing to. Thank you.
Real quick, Tracy, I just wanted to give you your department a kudos. Was approached by a couple yesterday that was having issues with their contractor and didn't pull the right permits and this, that, and the other. And they went in and they said that very helpful, very knowledgeable, and they really appreciated the service that they
Thank
got.
you.
So
Appreciate that. I'll pass it along. Thank you.
Or move into agenda items? Is that where we're headed? Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Good morning. Yes, again, Adam Trimble, Building Planning.
Sahara Cooey, Building and Planning.
So on your agenda for tomorrow, we do have a contract with Facet Incorporated for a critical areas ordinance update, which will include all of the required review and elements that the state asks local governments to do periodically for the protection of environmentally sensitive areas. We'll do some public outreach, which I've already started. I've had conversations with Weyerhaeuser, other major industries, about rule changes and definitely tracking that carefully. And our consultant, I believe, is, very well versed. They've completed work in, it looks like, the majority of counties in the state. And so they have that intimate understanding of what the agencies, staff are looking at, where local governments have agency and authority to adopt rules that are appropriate for their citizenry, for their industries, and for their interests. So that's on your consent calendar.
This one is the one we said, go ahead and apply for the grant.
Yeah.
And the grant was, we're
Automatic.
given the grant?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, 100% grant funded. And then also on your agenda is a public hearing, which is a closed record public hearing for a subdivision. You want to tell us, just to remind us a little bit about that?
Yes, it's a closed record public hearing to consider the preliminary rural subdivision plat approval recommendation for KT West subdivision. It's located on Payne Road in Castle Rock. Was previously part of a 4-lot short subdivision. They're looking to create an additional lot, which pushes us into the rural subdivision standards.
And we didn't have a lot of interest from the public in this one during the planning commission public hearing. And so the commission's role is the closed record hearing, which is a quasi judicial yes or no decision on the.
So there'd be nobody from the public to speak because they didn't speak at the, okay.
And are we just voting to amend to add another lot to the subdivision?
Yeah, it's approval of essentially a long plat versus a short plat. The long plat requires your approval. The short plat was what they tried initially, but then they decided they did want that extra lot. And so here we are with the long plat. So. I think that's all we had.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Finance Department's on the list for a agenda item. We're in agenda items, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a contract for the Mediation Center for a 2-year contract. Their contract expires December 31st this year. And so they're looking to renew that basically under the same terms and conditions as before. We did change the dollar amount to 81,000 because when we looked at their old insurance requirements, they were outdated and it required them to procure some additional insurance to meet our current standards. So the contract's for 81,000 over 2 years though.
For some reason, I remember it being more than that when we talked about it previously. Like 150. Am I just daydreaming that?
Yeah.
At what? Oh, okay, so that's what it is. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, this one involves the courts, and they actually pay the monthly bills for that, but it's related to the courts And I think that one's related to landlord mediation.
I think the courts one is like custody type things,
Yeah.
trying to work through those contracts.
Yeah.
And the court asks them to help with some of that,
Right.
which is cheaper than having two attorneys try and figure it out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should I say quite a bit cheaper? Yeah.
Sounds like that would be open for some jokes, but
Yeah. Okay, so just so I'm square on this is a renewal of an existing contract. We're doing it out for 2 years. The amount's a little different because there's a little more insurance requirement, or a little more
A little more
stringent.
expense on their side.
Okay. Okay. Deborah.
Good morning, Deborah Gardner, Cowlitz County Treasurer. I have 2 items on the consent agenda tomorrow. The first one is our contract with Government Portfolio Advisors, and that is our investment advisor. Our contract expires December 31st, and we have the option to extend it to 2 years. We did discuss this in the Finance Committee, and we have the Finance Committee's recommendation to move forward with the extension. And I needed to bring it to you for your approval and a signature on the consent.
They've done a really good job for us.
Yes, it's nice to have their advising on, what we're doing. They helped us, create the pool, help us with our policy review every year. And we do an annual review on how much we should keep liquid and what the duration of the securities that we purchase, how long they should be. So they help us a lot with all of our planning for what we're going to do for the next year as well. Any further questions on that one?
Straightforward.
Okay. The second one is our bond counsel agreement. We have a bond, an attorney who's specially appointed by the prosecuting attorney as our bond counsel. What we use bond counsel for is if we were to go out for bond, any bonding issues, they guide us through it and help us with all the steps and the resolutions and anything that we need legally. And that contract expires on December 31st as well. And we will, this extension will extend it out for 3 years. The company that we use, the law firm that we use, we've always had Mark Greeno as our special deputy prosecuting attorney. We're going to add a second one because there's times when Mark's not available or on vacation or something to that sort, and we have questions. We have a second associate that we can reach out to. So we're extending the contract, and we are also appointing a second deputy prosecuting attorney.
Deborah, is this just on an as-needed basis, or is this like a retainer? What's the amount of money we're talking about here?
Yeah, it's on as needed, and if we were to go out for bond, it's a percentage of the amount that's being borrowed. And it's charged at the time of the closing of the bond, and it's considered a bond issuance cost.
So there's nothing, our budget goes that affects this contract. We're not paying any money until we use them for the bond purchase.
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, if we had some substantial need to reach out to them for something, I mean, we could on other topics, and, we could get invoice for it. But we've only basically used them for the bond closings. And we'll have that bond closing that the county has already agreed for with the PFD next year. And we will use these guys as our bond counsel, but all those fees will be paid through the PFD. Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Somebody didn't get rid of all their trick or treat candy.
Who's got the bag?
Or he got it on sale because now Halloween's over.
No, I got it before Halloween.
Oh, it was not on sale. Okay, Gina James, Health and Human Services. We have a couple of items on the agenda tomorrow. The first item is an amendment to our consolidated contract with the Department of Health. So we see these amendments frequently. This amendment is adding a little bit more funding for perinatal Hep B work. They're adding $750 for a total of $1,000. It's case driven, so when there's additional cases, they'll allocate some additional funding. The other item that's being added is a new allocation to this contract. It's called Public Health Infrastructure Grant, or FIG. We are looking at what this can be used for. It does have specific uses. It's geared towards infrastructure and workforce. And one of the things we're looking at is improving our food database system. Our current system is on the verge of breaking. And so we're looking at this opportunity to maybe upgrade that system. We're looking at options through Acela, which we use in the county in other departments, including environmental health, so we're familiar with it. It sounds like they do have a food module, so we're looking into that to see if we could utilize these funds to help us to transition over to that for our food database system. And it could also support some staff training and things like that. So we have that piece in there as well.
So the Hep B, they set aside 1,000. This other one, is it like you apply for it, or does it have limitations too, or?
The Hep B,
No, the Hep B has
Oh.
the 1,000, this
Yep.
big one you're talking about.
yes, the Public Health Infrastructure Grant. It does have specific uses, and so we're looking at what those are. We would have to have our plan approved by the state. They would have to approve what we want to use the funding for. But it is specific for like infrastructure and public health workforce. So it has to fall within those realms.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So they don't send us any set amount. They're telling us, if you find something you have a need, send it to us and we'll take a look at it.
Well, so they do, the allocation is 200,000
Okay.
in there. And then within that, we would look, like I said, we have to get our plan approved by the state. So
Yeah.
we would look at what
Okay.
we want to do, provide that estimate, and if it's approved, reimburse us up to 200,000.
Gotcha.
Gina, over the weekend, I had a couple of people approach me about people's SNAP benefits
Mm.
in our local food banks. I know that there's been a lot of people that have been taking food to our local food banks.
Mhm.
The question was asked to me if the county is doing anything to help food banks, and I don't know if there's any programs available or not, or what options we have
Yeah,
to assist.
so I'm just thinking about what funding that we're involved in that might relate. Actually, the next item I have to cover is concerning the Community Development Block Grant, our Public Services Grant, which historically supports the Meals on Wheels program. So that's one program that we're involved in that may be helpful right now. Besides that, we're not directly involved in SNAP benefits or other food type programs. I did just see a blurb that one of our, like our CHG grant may allow temporary
as a temporary option, may allow some support for food through that if folks are in that program. So there may be some additional resource there for people who are in that program. Our department, as staff, signed up to get a food bin in our office just to have it just as a person, you know, as our department chose to do that, just to collect food. But other than that, we're not specifically involved in
Okay.
all the food
I just
resources.
wasn't sure what our relationship with a lot of the food banks were.
Mm.
I know that there's a lot of businesses within the county that have really stepped up and given food to the food banks, which is really neat to see that
Mhm.
the community's helping those people who would need that help. So.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, so as I mentioned, the other item we have on our agenda is, it's actually 2 public hearings related to our Community Development Public Services Grant. This particular grant is dedicated to community action agencies. So while it comes to the county, we are to pass it through to our local community action agency, which is Lower Columbia CAP. We have historically utilized this funding for Meals on Wheels. The 2 public hearings tomorrow are, the first one would be to close out last year's grant. So just an formal acknowledgement that it's done and we utilize the funds. And then the second public hearing is approving the application for the current year grant. The timing is a little bit odd because we're already in the fiscal year. But I think this federal government held off on giving announcements for some time. And so here we are. So we'll have the application as that second public hearing. If the application is approved, then the next step is passing the contracts through.
With that contract, did we exhaust all the funds last year? How's that payout work?
We didn't exhaust 100% of the funds. We also had, this gets a little bit confusing, we had some what's called program income that was at the county, and we have to utilize that funding first. So in the past, the county has engaged in a different CDBG grant for different housing rehab programs and things like that. And when we did that, we got involved in being on individuals' liens and things like that. And so if they go to sell their home, then they have to pay that back. And so when that happens, that money comes back to the county, and then we have to use it within our CDBG grants that we currently have. So we had a little bit of that happen last year. So we didn't spend all of those funds for that reason last year. So, but we usually do the grants about $70,000 for the year. Okay, any more other questions on that?
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
good. I'm showing 2 public hearings at 9:30. How are we doing that?
They just want right after.
Okay. Public Works.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sean Early, Public Works. I'm just going to get one item out of the way real fast before Susan gets through all of hers. Item number 2 is a request for proposals for as-needed supply and delivery of fuel and diesel. That'll be scheduled for December 2nd at 4 p.m. So this covers all of our delivered products to our road shops and the landfill. It involves diesel number 2, renewable diesel, dyed, undyed, and then gasoline as well. So it covers all of our bases there, and seeing what we can do and find the best thing for the county. Any questions on that?
Yeah, how do we get a proposal with the price of fuel fluctuating the way that it does? How does that work?
Yeah, a lot of times it'll, our specific one is, they list the Opus rack that they're getting it from, maybe Portland or Seattle. Their markup on it, either fixed fee, percentage based, and then with the estimated quantity to see which provider would be the best for the county at that point. So the rack, will be volatile throughout the year, but the markup on that for the fees, for the delivery fees, maybe equipment filling fees and things of that nature would differentiate between all of them.
Okay.
Thank you.
So good morning, Susan Eugenius. As the county engineer, as Sean alluded to, I have a plethora of items for this week. Item number 1 is the call for a hearing for our 6-year transportation plan. This is our formal call and includes a copy of the 6-year plan, which we workshopped, was that last week or 2 weeks ago?
Last Wednesday, I think. Last Wednesday? Yeah.
Yeah. So it has the plan, the annual bridge plan, and all of the information out so the public can view it prior to the hearing. That is set in conjunction with the budget hearings on December 2nd. Any questions on that? So then item number 4 in the consent agenda is amendment number 6 to the professional service agreement with RH2 Engineering for the Toutle Water System Improvement Projects. It is an increase of $33,200, bringing the total to $540,489. And this is to make some changes, client requested changes, client being Public Works, to the design that they had presented to us. So it was an out of scope change to what they did. And it's related to the Shadow Mountain project specifically. All right, item number 5 is amendment number 3 to the personal services agreement with Windsor Engineering for the Camelot Large On-Site Septic System Project. This amendment simply extends the date to ending the end of next year to provide the services that were already in the contract. Item number 7 is the contract completion letter to All Stripes LLC for the 2025 countywide striping project. It's just the continuation of the paperwork so we can close out the project and release the retainage. Then we have 2 motion items. Item number 14, which is supplemental agreement number 4 to our local agency standard consultant agreement with WSP. This is our as needed contract. And as part of that, this consultant has been working on the Tower Road Rock Creek project. So we are increasing the total contract an additional $500,000 to get us up to 1.7. So in addition to doing the Tower Road final project, this contract also included some bridge ratings and the Eric Creek culvert replacement out on Abernathy Creek Road. They did the original emergency contract and the Tower Road final contract. We are in the permitting stage with intention of building that next summer. So this includes finalizing the permits and then giving us construction inspection services, which we usually have in-house staff do, but due to the amount of construction we have next year, we selected this project because it's a more complicated project to have an inspector from the consulting firm do the inspections for us. So that's why the increase is more than what you normally see on their construction support.
would that amount of money still fall within what your estimates were for that? I mean, that's a, what, 40% increase?
Yes, this covers some of the closeout of the other projects and this final project. So the construction project is a $4 million project. So your construction inspections should be in the $400,000 range.
Okay.
So, yes,
So-
it's high.
Is this because we expanded the scope of this project or?
This was not originally, so traditionally, when Public Works goes out and gets our consultants on board, our RFQ states design and potentially construction support and inspection services. So when we first bring a contract to you for approval, it is just the design cost. And then we bring back the supplements depending on what our workload is and what type of project it ends up being will vary on how much support we need from the consultant during construction. So this work will include full-time construction inspection, review of all the structural submittals, and doing a final load rating of the bridge when the construction is complete. It is quite a significant bridge. It's quite high and over 100-foot span, so.
What's the funding for this? Remind me?
So it's a mix of ARPA funding. We're securing, Senator Wilson helped us obtain about $1 million from the state, and then the rest is being made up by road fund dollars. And then our final item is the supplemental agreement number 3 to the local agency standard consultant agreement with OTAC for the remaining portion of the Allender Road Stillwater Creek Fish Passage project. This includes final design, final permitting, and construction support. The amendment is an increase of $207,834.60. This project is funded by Brian Abbott Fish Barrier Removal Board funds, so it's funded at 85% of the existing box culvert that is out there. Is load rated. It is not as bad as the other one, but it is still heavily load rated. And this is a planned construction in 2027, unless my stars align. But it is shown on the 6-year plan as a 2027 project.
So this is another situation where they came back and said, okay, based on what you're asking us, we have to increase it 207,000 to support the construction and the permitting and all that stuff.
Yes, and that is pretty standard on us to go back and ask for help during this phase of the project to do it as a separate consultant agreement so that we're more accurate, not a dart in the dark, because a lot of times going into this type of project, we don't know what kind of structure we're going to build.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Yes.
Should be fun.
Jessica.
Good morning, Jessica Warren, Human Resources. On the agenda for tomorrow, I have the agreements with the unions on shifting monies and moving to tiered rates for health insurance premiums. Overall, this will result in an increase on both the county contribution level, and then for most employees, this will see a decrease in their health insurance premiums. So I think we're really fortunate this year because all I'm seeing in, my HR newsletters is health insurance premiums, average of 10% increases all around. So at least for 2026, I think we're putting ourselves in a good spot for insurance premiums. You have any questions?
And this change will allow us to have access to our experience, correct?
Correct, yeah. So the agreements on the agenda are specifically relating to the tiered rates for collective bargaining agreements. But this move to Regents, we're gonna have full access to our experience and be able to start seeing that, after the 2026 plan year to hopefully move the needle in an even further better direction.
Yeah. Good job on getting that done.
It's been a lot of work in our office. And, for the most part, I think we're hearing, really positive reactions from employees and staff. Do you have any further questions on that?
No.
Okay. I'm next, so I don't know if I
And I see
should.
are you on the list for the next one? You got some stuff?
Just the HR requests items.
Okay.
So unless there's any miscellaneous.
I don't see any.
So my only request this morning is 2 executive sessions, one for performance of a public employee and one for qualifications of an applicant.
Time
Let's start with 5.
for both?
Yeah.
She's really optimistic. Wow.
Okay.
You don't get to ask any questions today.
We just zip it.
You can always extend it.
Okay, so we'll go into executive session, performance of a public employee, qualifications of an applicant. 5 minutes will cover both. Okay.
The board is extending the executive session for a period of 2 minutes until 10:55 a.m.
Okay, back from executive session, no decisions rendered. I will turn it over to Jessica.
Jessica Warren, Human Resources again. I have a couple additional requests for you. The first is a request to move the current PeopleSoft ERP manager to step 9, along with a 5% lead / training pay for her. That would amount to about a 7.5% pay increase.
Okay.
And then along with that request, because our ERP manager is looking to retire soon, we have a request to start the new ERP analyst who will train under her at step 6, which is $76.28 a month.
Okay.
And that's all I have this morning.
Yeah.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, gentlemen?
Did want to bring you guys up to speed on something that we're going to talk about at SWACA this week. At our
That's
last,
your clean air
Yeah.
place? Yeah.
Southwest Washington Clean Air. We discussed the imposition of a tax that the state of California has already implemented with regards to an indirect, kind of like a impact fees. So if your business is causing a lot of people to drive to your business will be charged for the number of people that come to it every month. And the carbon footprint that they're putting on the environment. A
Can
lot
we
of us
just
on,
make it harder for people to do business with us? I mean, let's just,
yeah, a lot of us on the board the majority of us on the board expressed the fact that in the state of Washington, we already pay a carbon fuel tax. That should be enough.
Highest in the
Uh,
nation.
Yeah, so I don't know how much traction it's gonna get, but I just wanted you guys to be aware of it, and I'm voting no, obviously.
Yeah.
I'm not in favor of that, because one of the things I brought up in our meeting is where do you draw the line? I mean, if we're able to charge businesses because they're having people go to their business, a carbon tax fee, are we gonna now charge consumers because you're choosing to go to the grocery store on top of the fuel tax? Where does it stop? And I just don't see an end to it, so.
Especially when you consider everything I've seen, humans, we're only like 3%. And if we didn't have carbon, you wouldn't have an earth.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just so ridiculous. It just is nuts.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hear your frustration. Okay. Thanks. I'll go back and hit the stress ball.
Good. Okay, gotta get my composure back there. I think one of the things that I've been rolling over in the back of my mind that we kind of heard about at one point was a TIF moratorium. And I think that we need to seriously consider that as soon as possible.
Yep. I agree with you. I see the Port and Chelan is fighting back against that.
Right, and I think that, we'll see, because they already have a TIF in action, and so now the commissioners.
We've made a request. Did she send us a copy of theirs? We were trying to get a copy of what Chelan's look like.
Yeah,
And see if we can't recruit, because I agree with you.
I want that, I would like
yeah.
to see us get that in place soon.
Yeah.
Before something happens, that somebody else jumps on that landmine and we gotta deal with it again.
It's pretty crazy that the port declined the commissioner's offer on that. I thought it was a great idea. I'm like, wow, that's a good way to try and offset what they're wanting to do. And they still said, no, we're not.
No, we
Yeah,
won't at all.
That's very telling.
Once they got it in place, I mean, you're not gonna negotiate them down. I mean,
No.
you know,
Yeah.
greed is something that you just aren't gonna negotiate
Okay.
with.
I think we all agree as soon as we, we get that in, we'll try and make a draft and see what we can do.
Yeah,
Okay?
Yeah.
that's all I got.
All right. Okay. We will adjourn till tomorrow.